Hey everybody, so today's video is going to be quite casual. I'm probably not going to edit this voiceover very much, but I'm going to get right into it because I'm already starting. Today I'm going to be live writing my novel. So this is actually me drafting a new novel, Mothwork 2, which I haven't really talked about much on here yet. While I was writing this scene, I thought, it's kind of the perfect scene to record, and then you guys can watch me just typing it out. I sped this video up a little bit, but not very much, so it is a little bit long. It's about an hour of me writing, and there are some pauses because I naturally take a lot of breaks. I have a lot of anxiety, and so that transfers into my writing process quite often, and sometimes when I can't get into a scene, I really second guess the language I'm using. I second guess everything, and so that can get a little bit problematic while I'm drafting, but that's why there are some pauses, but I thought it would just be better to leave them in there. I'm not planning on talking the whole video because if you guys want to see me drafting, that would probably be most helpful, but let me know in the comments what you think would be the best way to do this kind of video in the future, if this is effective. But I'm writing this scene right now from Mothwork 2. Like I said, Lonan is driving on the highway, and I was writing just a description of what that's like. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about my writing process because I've literally never recorded myself like writing like this and looked back on it, but I started this writing session off in Wordbook, which is a thesaurus that I use that I really like for Windows. So if you have a Windows computer, I don't know if they have one for Mac yet, but it's a really great thesaurus. So I was just consulting that, and I consult a thesaurus quite a bit when I'm drafting, a little bit more than average in this particular writing session. So I wrote 2 scenes in this session. I'm just gonna leave a trigger warning for the second scene. There's a lot of blood imagery, so if that's something you're sensitive to, you might want to skip that part. I'll leave timestamps so that you know which part not to watch if that's going to be a problem. But yeah, so right now I'm just writing what Lonan is seeing outside, and this was kind of funny because I haven't been outside for a while. Like, the only time I really get out is if my family and I are going on drives, which is not too often. So I was kind of living vicariously through him while he was watching these neighborhoods and what was on the streets. And so he's observing sort of a route from Las Vegas to Arizona. I've never been to those places, so this is probably really wrong. But I don't really mind for Mothwork 2 the accuracy of everything. But yeah, as you can see, I do pause quite a bit while I'm writing just to think. I am a pantser, so I'm literally running an entire scene for the first time through my head. This one in particular, I had no idea what I was doing. You can see me consulting the thesaurus quite a bit, just because I couldn't really gather what words I wanted, which was kind of funny because whatever word I put into the thesaurus, I ended up just using that word anyway. So here I'm looking up pictures of a magnolia bush to make sure, like, oh, is that a flower I want to be including? To be honest, magnolia bush I just thought of because it was in my other short story, The Species is Dead, and that was the first thing that came to me, and I thought it was a specific detail enough, so I just left it there. But yeah, so a lot of my writing process is just sort of slow like this and thinking. Today was not very, this particular session was not super fast or anything, especially in the first scene. The second scene comes a little bit easier, but I have to fact check a lot. I was like, does high rise even exist? Is that like something I just heard, or does that count? So I guess that's a real thing, and I fact-checked that. So having internet while I'm writing is quite important, though I can survive without it, usually for the better almost, so I rely less on these things, but sometimes it's nice to have these resources. This scene in particular didn't call for anything very important. It's really just him observing buildings, and then driving, so I didn't really put too much focus on like the movement of driving. It was more the imagery of what was going on around him that I wanted to sort of highlight. But yeah, my writing process is sort of laid back like this. I have a writing update for this chapter where I have some of these excerpts. I didn't love this first scene, to be honest, so I don't think I have too many excerpts from them. I will link that in the description, but you're seeing all of it anyway. But yeah, some of it took me like a lot of time to think because I didn't really know how to describe such a contemporary thing. I don't really describe very, very contemporary things like this, like buildings and skyscrapers and stuff. Especially not in Lonan's point of view because he hasn't driven, like I haven't written him driving in like probably like 3 years. So it was kind of weird. But yeah, a lot of what was in this draft here, I didn't really edit it that much, to be honest. That's just going to be my disclaimer moment here, though. Obviously, this is a first draft, so if there are mistakes, there's typos, things are a little bit awkward, that's obviously why. I'll come back and edit this probably a few months from now, but I'm not too concerned with the writing. I think it was okay. Nothing where I feel like I need to go overhaul the entire thing. But yeah, it's quite a lot actually of me just fiddling around, jumping back, like I might have written something like I just did and then I went back and added something before that sentence, fleshing things out. But I'm gonna leave the voiceover here for this first scene so that you can just watch the rest of me typing it. I'll put a little bit of music so that it's less boring, but I hope this gives a little bit of insight, at least for this particular scene. Nothing too special, but enjoy the rest of it. Okay, so we've made it to the second scene. As you saw from the other scene, I do edit as I go. I don't really mind doing it too much. I don't really do intensive editing as I go, but as you can see, I didn't really know how to start the scene. It took me a few moments. Like I said, I cut out some of the longer pauses, but the shorter ones actually happened. So I decided to just jump sort of into the scene. This is where Lonan walks into his apartment that he shares with his girlfriend, Eliza, and they're painting the walls of their kitchen. Actually, the entire kitchen, like the cupboards, everything. It's gonna look really weird, but like they're painting the entire kitchen red because, I don't know, she's having I guess, a I don't know. She's weird, and she's just gone vegetarian, and it's sort of like a midlife crisis kind of thing. But she doesn't think so. But he's kind of like skeptical about it. So their relationship is a little bit tense, which you'll see in some of the dialogue. But again, this was a little bit hard for me to jump into. I'm very bad at writing beginnings. I don't really like starting things. And so I really just need to get past the beginning and get into the meat of the scene. And usually when I go back to the beginning I wrote, it's fine. This one's like not too special, except for the TV that he's watching. I kind of really like this TV part. It comes into play with the last sentence of this chapter, which is on my blog, like I said, with all the excerpts. I really liked this sort of Lonan identifying with the animals in this chapter because it's called Bad Vegetarian, and Eliza's the bad vegetarian, and we can figure out the symbolism from there. But here I'm just looking up pictures of a heron just so that I can describe it properly. I think I was looking for like an interesting way to describe its feathers, but I didn't want to use the same language that I always do. I didn't want to use the word opalescent in this case because I just used pearlescent to describe the windows in the previous scene, but I ended up just using opalescent because I didn't really care. So yeah, that's sort of what I'm doing here. And then later, I Googled a video of heron hunting. Don't worry, I don't have any of that video actually in there. I just have me like looking it up. Because I wasn't sure if I was describing the way it was hunting properly, but by some stroke of luck, even though I've literally never seen a heron, I was. But yeah, this scene is a little bit tense between Lonan and Eliza because she's doing some weird thing by pretending that she cut her hand, even though he knows that she didn't cut her hand or her arm, because it's like, that's not the color of blood, Eliza, like no. So that's a little bit why he's a bit apathetic in this scene, because he kind of already knows her tricks that she pulls quite often, especially since in the last scene he kind of left without her approval. So I guess they're kind of annoyed at each other right now. And so I have a lot of crutch language, like the word fluorescent that I just used. I guess it works in this context, and I don't think I used it that much in this chapter, but that definitely is a major crutch word for me, or I guess not a crutch word, just a word that I use maybe, I guess, because it's literally the only word that I use to describe anything now. But sometimes it happens. I kind of cycle through words like that, but right now I'm writing some dialogue, and so with dialogue, I kind of like to feel out what the characters are saying. Obviously, there's something obvious the character's going to want to say, but I try to find what's not obvious. I try to make them say what they're not trying to say, and that's kind of what I employed in this scene. But I think that's about it for this final scene. I'm just going to let it roll here so you guys can just watch the rest of it. I hope that this is an insight in my writing process. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!